Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. I'm Doug Rice. Can a brother get some horns? Come on. How you doing? Good morning. Don't drop your phones. It's just me. That's who you've come to see. How are you, Negroes? How does it go? Well, it is 10 o'clock in the morning. It is 29th of August, and it is 2023. Well, look at me. How you doing this morning, folks? I am energized beyond belief. Oh, the caucasity of it all. Oh, the magnitude of the caucastic attitude that they all seem to exude. I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Anyway, how you doing? It's Doug Rice. This is the Doug Rice Show. Now, I'm going to get better at this, folks, okay? I've been doing this for a while. Let me give you a little background. I did this for 3 years incognito, as I like to say. Yes. I was Amos A. Nunn, the incognito. I openly admit it, and you heard me say so. I was also called the Black Fact Checker, along with that moniker. Now, Amos A. Nunn was simply the reverse of anonymous, for those of you that might follow along. And I did that for 3 years, unbeknownst to anyone. And that's how many people watched me. That's how many people listened. And then one day, January 6, 2021, that's when the white folks had some fun. And that's the day I came undone. And I've been done ever since that day. What can I say? And I'm on my way. Welcome to the Doug Rice Show. Thank you for showing up. Now, this is the format. Every day, 10 o'clock, I'll be here. Energized, hopefully. I don't know. Full of coffee. I love coffee. I don't drink alcohol, which is probably why my synapti are firing on all cylinders. Now, I don't read what you write in chat. I don't have time for that. I have two wonderful moderators. Antoine Anderson and Detrina, the anchor of the Moderator Initiative. Now, understand and listen well, because I will be the one to tell if these two determine that you're trying to ruin anything that I might be doing. Well, they are going to be pursuing an exit. And you will be reflective of that exit. They will usher you out. For sure. All right. So it's 10:04. Everybody's watching the news. Negroes that are not watching the news are not watching me. I mean that. If you do not keep your mental fingers on the pulse of these people as they go about protruding their attitude, prognosticating. Good Lord, you gotta do something, folks. You better watch these folks. Let's just go down the line. They're traveling miles now to do shootings. We got a guy, biker guy, traveled several miles. I had an argument with his wife, shot somebody. We got school faculty being murdered. We got Negroes being murdered. Whoa, slow down, Skippy. What's going on? Why this sudden surge, the need to merge and murder, and I don't understand it. It just, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't, it does, but I hate that it makes sense to me. That's more of more of a descriptive. All right, so thank you so much for showing up, folks. Listen, if you like what we do, again, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Who the hell can tell? I heard the notification bell don't work so well. And again, today we're going to cover something I think is extremely timely. Now, I did mistype Caucasian. I hope nobody can read that again. I did correct it in some places, so look for that correction in my spaces. The correct title today is Caucasian Related Truths. Caucasian Related Truths. The other C.R.T. Now listen to me. So we know what they're after. They want to cancel out any memory of all they've done to Negroes over history and time in this country. And I will tell you this, folks. If we were in their position, could you blame us? What a way to put that, right? I mean, let's go down the line. These folks are not doing fine. These folks are out of their minds. And they'd rather that we forget all the things that they've done and the things that they have yet to do. Maintain Negroes on the run. But are they going to get to you? Well, I don't know, son. Yeah, I know, I drift. Look, again, thank you for showing up. It's 10:07 in the morning. If you haven't watched the news, do so. I recommend you tune into the Democracy Report. I like that lady. She's very nice. She has Popeye like me. And not that you are into democracy, but you got to get your news from your enemy because they give you the keenest eye inside their minds. So you read what the enemy is writing because they are exposing in all their delighting, and they love the Negroes infighting, and I am on a roll today like butter. All right, here we go. All right, today's topic, Caucasian Related Truths, the other C.R.T. The other C.R.T. they want to cut. The C.R.T. they don't want to pay attention to. Those Caucasian Related Truths, perhaps we'll do a series, but let's start with this. First, why do white people hate black people? Now, look, get out of your feelings. Please, if you are a person that identifies as being a white person in this audience, please stay out of your feelings because you cannot be in this live and in your feelings at the same goddamn time. So, if you got a problem with what I'm saying, you got to go. Get on. Don't go fast enough, go quicker. Last thing I need is any kind of bootlicker. I don't know what that relates to, what I said, but it sounded good. What can I say? All right, look. All right. So today we're going to examine what the deal is. And we're going to ask ourselves, why do you hate black people? Why do white people hate black people? This is a good question. Now, Roland Martin Unfiltered, I recommend this guy. I had a wrong ideation about this gentleman, and I'm going to apologize openly. I think we had a tiff in Twitter, if he even recognized me, but he did respond. And, now that I've seen his recent work, this guy is well and beyond any great representation of a Negro, and so I recommend that you watch his show. But let's talk about the book that he wrote, Exploring Hate, White Fear. Now, this is a nationally acclaimed journalist, Roland Martin, and he discusses his eye-opening new book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. With the U.S. expected to become a minority nation as early as 2043, Martin urges the deep-seated fear that many white people currently feel of losing power, economic standing, or a particular way of life has been a driving force in shaping society and fueling a modern-day racial war. Now, I think he's onto something, folks. I think that Roland Martin is on to an ideation needed to be spread throughout the Hebrew nation. Now I'm going to start trying to get really attentive to process here. And I recommend that you lend Roland Martin your ear, so I'll put that in chat, and that will be that. All right, we're getting there. So, again, why do, this is a C.R.T. This is a Caucasian Related Truth. We're going to ask the question, why do white people hate black people? It's not a disdain, it's not a dislike, it's not, it's just not a casual deal. This is how these individuals really feel. And why? Well, some of them blame it on their DNA. Well, let's hear what they have to say. Whites with a terrible habit of hate ask this: did my DNA do it? Dear God. Really? So this comes from the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, number 17. And, you can read and you can download it. They make you pay for it. But whites with a terrible habit of hate. I'll read it. Don't worry about it. For 200 years or more, white biologists, psychologists, and sociologists have been scrutinizing the behavior of black people. Most of this period, the academic inquiry aimed to establish the inferior intelligence of the Negro. Other traits, such as laziness, dishonesty, and a preoccupation with sex, were also ascribed to the black race. In recent years, academic study has sometimes turned to a possible racial link to violence and criminal behavior. Some people ask, why don't their scholars direct their research to the behavior of whites? Some people ask that. I'm one of those people. Why, for example, do millions of whites have a strong need to demean, ridicule, hate, terrorize, and discriminate against blacks? Particularly if the issue of biology is to enter the discussion, are we morally certain that the racial problem to be studied by American scholars resides in blacks rather than in whites? What a question. And I could do this all night. Now that comes again, and I'll say it, in the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education. I'm going to put the link in the description. Ha, ha, ha. Just kidding. Put the description in the link in the description. What a good question. I mean, it is a solid question, folks. I am energized for an answer because you can see, without an answer to the things that we see every day that occur to us as we go about our day, it is beyond reason to not ask this question in some kind of way. And I dare surmise that through Negro eyes, we see through their lies. We tend to despise, but hey, that's just the way things go. Next, so this is the question. This is the question, and I want to know. Why do white people hate black people so much? Let's go to a source, find out what we know. Dr. Cynthia Elise Smith. Now, I do want to recommend folks Medium. I have a Medium account. I'm a writer, and I will gladly provide some of the writings that I have offered to Medium, which shadow bans me most effectively. And so I get very little exposure, which is to be expected in this kind of world we live in. But why do white people hate black people so much? As examined by Dr. Cynthia Lee Smith. Let's find out. And here we have a great indicator of just how and what they would love to do to us if they had the chance. And this, we know, nearly happened not too long ago. Why do white people hate black people so much? This is a question that is as old and worn as the variety of attempted answers to it. There are as many answers to the reason why as the number of people in the world, and renders the question as irrelevant and even flawed. What do I mean by irrelevant and flawed, you may ask? Well, at this point in our history, the question is why is not relevant, because there are many black people who frankly don't even care for the answer anymore. I am one of those people. Still many who think they know the right answer already, and most who believe the question itself is an abomination not worthy of an answer. Further, if you ask any white person, you will get any number of answers on a spectrum from, I don't hate black people, to, I hate black people because they are thugs, lazy, or insert an epitaph. It is flawed because no answer to this question could ever be born out of any real association with black people, since most white people with negative opinions about black people have never lived around or associated with black people. And what a weighty statement. What a statement of worth and girth. You know, it's those that have absolutely no association with the black experience per se that have the harshest, most discriminating opinions of our conditions set upon us by the captors that surround us. And this, what a look into the mind of an educated Negro to dissect this so quickly. I like what I'm reading so far. I think I'll continue. Even those who have had cursory experiences working with or living around black people have no actual idea why, except for what is presented to them via institutional media and entertainment sources. Indeed, this particular institution where racism is used to create the form and substance of public opinion has done a real number on black people over the generations through entertainment of various kinds, and certainly since the inception of radio and the motion picture industry. Pick a generation. You will find black people depicted in some of the worst ways imaginable, based on the music played, news media accounts of crime, movies, and television. Folks, why do white people hate black people so much? I don't know. Is it all that they take in and such? There's the link to this. And you know, I could read on, but I've got to move on, and this is probably way too long. And so there we go. All right. So I recommend reading that. It's got to have some sort of impact on your psyche as Negroes trapped in and amongst the descendants of those who've done the worst of the worst of the worst things, and it is still within these beings. Everything that we've experienced in the past collectively is still within these beings connectively. And I dare say the reasons that they think that way is no less a play upon their thoughts in sway. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, you know, they can't escape that notion. They can't escape that psychic potion. They can't look upon a Negro face and not realize exactly their place and our place in being here. And you understand as a Negro, man to man, these beings are being exactly what they've been and will continue to, basking in their sin. And Negroes without the Most High will have absolutely no win. Next. All right. So we've established at least, I don't know, a baseline, shall we? A baseline of what might be going on. But how deep does the hatred go? I mean, that's the question, just so everybody knows. It's not just about disdain or hatred. It's about, the level. Let's talk about levels. One drop and one hate. Does anybody remember or relate one drop of Negro blood? It was Negro blood. That's the identifier. That's the divider. And the chasm between Negroes and the nations can't be any wider. One drop. That's all it takes. What an interesting, confusing, and foolish race. Two portentous practices within the public discussion of race in the United States since the late 1960s are rarely analyzed together. One is the method by which we decide which individuals are black. The other is our habit of conflating the mistreatment of blacks with that of non-black minorities. Both practices compress a great range of phenomena into ostensibly manageable containers. Both function to keep the concept of race current amid mounting pressures that threaten to render it anachronistic. God dog it, I can't hit that one, but I know what it means. Both invite reassessment at the start of the 21st century. The prevailing criteria for deciding who is black is, of course, the principle of hypodescent. This one drop rule. Let me take y'all to school. Dear God, one drop of Negro blood. I need you to understand the impact and power of that. I need you to understand the magnanimous, grand ideation that must lay within their weakened nation. One drop? One drop? One drop! You know how much blood you got in you? A lot of drops. All right. I'm just saying, dear God, one drop. The prevailing criteria for deciding who is okay. So this one drop rule has meant that anyone, oh dear God, with a visible, discernible trace of what they call African, let's not call it anything other than Negro, or what used to be called Negro, thank you, ancestry is simply black. Let's read it again, run it back. This one drop rule has meant that anyone with a visually discernible trace of African or what used to be called Negro ancestry is simply black. You better pay attention, Negroes. I don't do this show just for shits and giggles. I don't do it so your ears will wiggle. I do this because this must be done before they get Negroes on the run, and they intend to make us run. One drop of Negro blood accuses you. I mean, if you don't understand that the hatred runs deep, I don't understand the company you keep. Next. So, okay, listen, Negro, I have looked at this from every angle and every direction, and now I'm going to talk about their protection. Let's see if we can make any connection. And if need be, perhaps we'll administer correction. Racial resentment hurts white people too. Physician tells colleagues, well, go on, boo. Many white people in America's heartland have been convinced that healthcare reform takes their resources to benefit people of color, says sociologist Jonathan Metzl. Tie me in a pretzel. MD, PhD. How you doing there, John? White people in many parts of America are undercutting their own health to the point of death because they've been convinced that public policies that would help them are actually designed to benefit people of color at their expense. What an angle! Sociologist Mr. Metzl has told an audience that there's a disinformation machine that comes to turn people against some proposals to expand government service and protections, as was seen with the Affordable Care Act. Dying of whiteness, politics, policy, and racial resentment. That disinformation campaign included 3 messages. This is government intrusion into your life. This is taking away privileges that are meant for you. And Black people are going to cut in front of you in line. Ladies and gentlemen, they're losing their mind. What an interesting turn of the worm, and what did we learn? Well, quite a bit. You know, they're hurting themselves. I want to go to, a story was told to me by an emergency nurse. And here's what's interesting, folks, before I tell this first. All of us have heard this same story. There's not a Negro listening to this show that hasn't heard this same event. In an emergency room nurse, life or death situation, and a Black doctor comes first. And who do you think will assist these people to their hearse, their very own damn selves, as the doctor they curse? That's right. Not only a refusal in the usual of a qualified doctor that they will allow to kill themselves if he is a Negro, but it's the very notion that Negroes are getting care that affects their health detrimentally there. I also want you to understand, folks, that that was a first line of attack against Negroes in this country. The first way that they thought of to decay our numbers in large order after the Emancipation Proclamation. They felt that they could deny Negroes health care in this nation, and that would decimate our population. Check my goddamned math. That means check to see if what I'm saying is true. I didn't mean to make you laugh. Next! So, do white people hate Black people? Why do white people hate Black? I don't know. I mean, I'm getting the feeling that maybe I'll find out though. It's amazing. So what about the workplace? Let's see. Dear white people, here are 5 uncomfortable truths Black colleagues need you to know, by Dana Brownlee, former contributor. And what she does is helps professionals navigate workplace challenges. Let me stop there real quick. Folks, I tell you that you have to be amongst the enemy every day, daily, and in and out, and that's what we see. But for God's sakes, upon all that is holy, please get that goddamn grin off your face. Now, despite what she might tell you, all the get along that must be within her, please, let's try to read the article anyway, because it just might be a winner. I'll continue. While no one has a precise prescription for how to eradicate racial injustice in the workplace, I firmly believe that a critical first step is embracing the difficult conversations and uncomfortable truths that we've become accustomed to avoiding. The baseline uncomfortable truth is that Blacks and whites in corporate America often maintain their own subcultures, including very different informal conversations in the workplace, with surprisingly little overlap at times. Well, that's true. We all see that, and we knew. You know, I mean, I've been in the workplace as a professional. I've had to check a few of them, let mouth override their ass, and, my workplace experience really didn't last. But she's right in her view of what we do while amongst the enemy through and through. Let's continue just to see how this progresses. To be honest, as a Black woman who has worked in and around corporate America for nearly 30 years, I've typically only been privy to the Black side of the conversation. But I think in this moment, where everyone is looking for opportunities to teach, learn, or grow, it's instructive, if not necessary, to break down the traditional silos and speak the unspeakable. Well, now, I like this woman. I like her immensely already. So in this vein, I'm sharing 5 critical truths that I feel many Black people in the corporate setting would vehemently discuss in private, not necessarily assert in public. Well, let's talk about it, folks. She's telling secrets. Okay. She's exposing. She's pulling out covers. Let's see what she says. All right. So I know she's got a number here, so we're going to just go down. Truth number 1, racism doesn't just show up in its most extreme form. There is indeed a continuum of racist thoughts and behaviors, and you may be in on it. That is something that we want white people to know. Let me just leave that up there, right here for the show. So that's truth number 1 as ascribed by this young woman. Let's see what number 2 is. I'm not going to read through all the explanation. Truth number 2, even if you personally haven't offended anyone that you know of, you may indeed be part of the problem. Oh, dear God, what a message. Yes, I believe that is a valid message to be transferred to the ears of every Caucasian that might hear it. Let's move on to number 3 and see what we see. Truth number 3. Every Black person on your team is not your friend. Oh my God. I'm going to read it again. Truth number 3. Every Black person on your team is not your goddamn friend. You know what I mean? So they didn't even pretend. I like this woman. On to number 4. Let's see if there's more. There isn't. I thought there were 5. Well, don't lie. That's number 3. I got to pay for 4 and 5. Y'all are serious, right? Or do I just continue? Oh, there we go. Truth number 4. Gender and race discrimination are not essentially the same. No, they are not the same. But dear God, let them hear that truth. Yes, number 5. Last truth to be transmitted to the ears of these individuals. Let's see if they get the residuals. Even though there may be 1 or 2 Black faces in leadership, your organization may indeed have a rampant racial injustice problem, bringing the 5 to a close, and so they all knows. Yeah. Wow. Again, for God's sake, are you guys going to work? You might want to go ahead and connect. Put this on the public work forum. There you go. Just put it in the chat room of the show. For God's sake, y'all, she brought the noise for all the little white girls and boys. Yeah. Okay. So look, I read a book, and the book was called White Fragility. Okay. Now we're on the topic of the other C.R.T, Caucasian Related Truths. And so this addresses, do white people hate Black people? Well, we've looked at it from all angles. You all discuss amongst yourselves. Please keep busy, for goodness sake. But let's talk about white fragility. Now, not necessarily a book, but the article caught my eye. Robin DiAngelo, How White Fragility Supports Racism and How Whites Can Stop It. She did write the book, Robin DiAngelo. Now, if you're a white person in America, social justice educator Robin DiAngelo has a message for you. You're a racist, pure and simple, and without a lifetime of conscious effort, you will always be. Well, that started off wonderfully. Let's continue. You can't help it, you see, because you've been swaddled in the cocoon of white privilege since you came sputtering out of your mother's womb, protesting the indignity of it all. Oh yeah, I like her. You may be indignantly sputtering right now at this insult to your humanity, but how can you be a racist? You have Black colleagues you consider your friends. You don't see skin color. You never owned slaves. You marched in the 60s. You even protest today. against the uniformed bad apples that use the power of their authority to smother minority lives and minority rights. How dare you say, I am anything like them, you grumble, as you pull the cloak of your bruised and fragile feelings around you. Well, I do believe this doesn't need a cell. I'm going to put that in chat. And that's going to be that. I cannot continue to read that one. That one will just go on and on. It's pretty long, folks. But I recommend the reading. Listen, I bought the book. I read the book. It's a message to white folks that will never hear it, never read it, and never want to. But it is a good book. And the fragility of these beings is on display just globally. It's everywhere now. It's not just in the United States, for goodness sakes. These snakes are slithering about, hissing, making the noise. You understand? What they're doing is signaling. What they're doing is transmitting. They are projecting. And the psychic tissue is connecting. And pretty soon, Negroes will need protecting. Next! All right. So, yeah, welcome to the Doug Rice Show. Just want to stop here real quick. Thank you so much for showing up. We've asked the question, the other C.R.T., and thank you again for listening to me. But, it's not just hate. I know. Why do they hate us? But more importantly, why do white supremacists want to kill black people? Now, here recently in the news, we've had a white person's ego bruised, such to the point that they leave their joint and travel miles to remove the smiles of Negroes shopping on a goddamned Saturday. Now, there's a lot more I could say, but let's ask the question anyway. Why do white supremacists want to kill black people? By Derica Purnell. What are the roots of this violence and how do we fight it? This, of course, I believe is the homage to the murder, the tragic taking of our Negro lives. After a century of attempts by black activists and lawmakers, President Joe Biden signed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act on the White House lawn, surrounded by black politicians, clergy, and nonprofit leaders. And the new federal law makes lynching a hate crime. Well, isn't that just wonderful? And what has it done for us? What has stopped since then? Nothing. Because every now and again you find a Negro hanging from a tree. The only hope is one day it's not me. But we continue. But I had questions, doubts really. Do white supremacists kill black people because we did not have a federal anti-lynching law? If not, then does Congress think that such a law will be a deterrent? Will federal prosecutors listen to black families who say their children were lynched, or to police and coroners who call it suspicious deaths suicides? Will this law punish civilians for violence but reward them if they join police departments? I sent my editor a draft of an essay questioning the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. I did not have the energy to respond to the potential backlash from readers, so I sat on my criticisms, reflected on my arguments, and prayed that I would be wrong. Then, last week, an 18-year-old white supremacist drove to a grocery store in Buffalo and murdered 10 black people. He published a manifesto espousing his horrific views. Maybe he hadn't heard about the consequences listed in the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Let me stop right there so I can draw back. It is almost like a repetitive repeat of what occurred yesterday, not last week, day before. And to read this and know that on the Doug Rice Show, I'm somehow forced to relive that which keeps on continuing to give. Their hatred, their murderous intent. Why do they hate us? Well, the anti-lynching bill has done nothing. But read the article and you'll get the answer yourselves. I'm not going to read that article. You can go to hell. Next, I'm moving on, folks. I'm sorry about that. This is what you get. Oh, now, let me say this, folks. You guys know, as I do the Doug Rice Show, these folks come at me and they claim that I am racist. I'm not racist. I don't like white people. That's the problem. See, I'm not racist. I'm going to say that again. I don't like white people. White people and anybody that identifies as being white, that I don't like. I love Italians and Germans and Polish people. Typically, they're wonderful people. They're beautiful people. But all these individuals that run around this homogeny of this conglomerate of sycophants that walk around claiming to be white, but from different tribes, like day and night, I don't give two damns about white. I'm sorry, I don't like white folks. But I like everybody else. I get along. I mind my business. I tell folks to move on. I don't know. I mean, I'm doing a show, but I don't want you to come away from that with the notion that somehow I am a racist, because that's just not a potion I'm administering to you. I don't like white folks. Now you got the clue. Now, for those that don't identify as being quote unquote a color, I don't care for black folks too much either. I don't have my druthers. So as we go over to this next piece of news, let's see what else we might peruse. Where did we get the idea that only white people can be racist? Well, I'll tell you where we got it. I'm not even going to read it. I'm going to tell you why. The reason we cannot be racist is we have no effect on their circumstances. Our hatred and bias toward anyone, whether they be white, whether they associate themselves with that conglomerate of nonsense, or whether they be Chinese or Japanese or Korean or any other demographic that we're seeing, black people cannot be racist. We don't have the power to affect any traces of their lives, of what they do, of where they work, or anything. To me, the idea of thinking that a racist black person has any power just ain't gonna make it within this Doug Rice hour. Next! That's right, I just moved on. That's how I'd move shit. So I think we've delved into this quite efficiently. But here's an interesting look from the New York Times. This guy says Negroes are anti-Semitic because they are anti-white. I mean, what kind? James Baldwin. Interesting. 67. James Baldwin. That is him saying a reasoning they've made. And let's see the foundation he's laid. When we were growing up in Harlem, our demoralizing series of landlords were Jewish, and we hated them. We hate them because they were terrible landlords and did not take care of the building. A coat of paint, a broken window, a stopped sink, a stopped toilet, a sagging floor, a broken ceiling, a dangerous stairwell, the question of garbage disposal, the question of heat and cold, of roaches and rats, all the questions of life and death for the poor, and especially for those with children. We had to cope with all of these as best we could. Our parents were lashed to futureless jobs in order to pay the outrageous rent. We knew the landlords treated us this way only because we were colored. And we knew that we could not move out. The grocer was a Jew, and being in debt to him was very much like being in debt to the company store. The butcher was a Jew, and yes, we certainly paid more for bad cuts of meat than other New York citizens, and we very often carried insults home, along with the meat. We bought our clothes from a Jew, and sometimes our secondhand shoes. And the pawnbroker was a Jew. Perhaps we hated him most of all. The merchants along 125th Street were Jewish. At least many of them were. I don't know if Grants or Woodworths or Jewish names. And, well, I remember that it was only after the Harlem Riot of '35 that Negroes were allowed to earn a little money in some of the stores they spent so much. Not all of these white people were cruel. On the contrary, I remember some who were certainly as thoughtful as bleak circumstances allowed, but all of them were exploiting us. That is why we hated them. We also hated the welfare workers, of whom some were white, some colored, some Jewish, and some not. We hated the politicians, not all of whom were Jewish, some of whom were black. The poor, of whatever color, do not trust the law and certainly have no reason. And so, and God knows we didn't. We have no reason. So, if you must call a cop, we said in those days, for God's sake, make sure it's a white one. Oh my God. We did not feel that the cops were protecting us, and well, we knew too much about the reasons for the kinds of crimes committed in the ghetto, but we feared black cops even more than white cops, because the black cop had to work so much harder on your head to prove himself and his colleagues that you, or that he, was not like all the others. So, Negroes are anti-Semitic because they're anti-white. What an interesting look so long ago into our past history when we were better Negroes. I'll share that with you as well. You guys have that one. So what have we learned? What have we learned? One of the C.R.Ts, one of the Caucasian Related Truths, is that they hate us, and they hate us for their cause, not for our own. And it doesn't stop there. There are white people that hate each other themselves collectively. Let's delve into it. Here, from the Knox Focus, the columnist asks, why do white people hate white people? What an incredible task. Even though I have lived amongst white people since I was 17 years old, I don't pretend to understand them. Why do whites condemn white supremacy if they are white? It seems to me that if whites are opposed to white supremacy, then they should do something about it. And I don't mean trying to find some kook, uber racist group to label as terrorists. Consider that Joe Biden has condemned those who use white supremacy for power, political gain, and profit. If he is serious, then he should resign and cede the presidency to Kamala Harris. Attorney General Garland has testified that white supremacy poses the most serious domestic national security threat in the United States. Again, Garland should resign and give his position to a person of color. The governor of Washington in 2022 in a speech listed objectivity and individualism as examples of white supremacy. This is from a white guy. The Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture listed traits of white supremacy: rugged individualism, the nuclear family, objective, rational, linear thinking, hard work, Christianity, respect for authority, planning for the future, delayed gratification, action orientation, decision-making, and being polite. Does this mean that I'm a white supremacist? What a read. Well, folks, that's interesting. It's an interesting question. Why do white people hate white people? It asks, why do they bother? They may not be up for the task. I'll put that in the chat. And let me see if that is that. Here's something interesting I found. Black and brown people have been protesting for centuries. It's white people who are responsible for what happens next. And what will happen next, folks? How do you know you're white? I'm talking to hundreds of law students. The room is racially diverse and full of people that have gotten into top law schools. They're committed to making racial equity a cornerstone of their work. They tend to think about race in their daily lives. They've chosen to attend this evening's lecture about the problematic ways race is baked into America. And the first thing she asks is how they know if they are white. She starts by talking with volunteers, tells them what race they are, asks them, and then asks them how they know. Invariably, students of color say things like, I know I'm Black because the world tells me every single day. I know I'm Latinx because my family it's in my blood, it's my language. But when I ask white students how they know they're white, the answer is almost always the same: silence. White students often stop short, unable to identify and articulate the culture, political, economic, and historic clues that tell them they are a part of whiteness, let alone what being part of whiteness truly means. I let the silence grow. It gets uncomfortable. Then I step in to suggest that this phenomenon, not the individual student, is a significant part of America's problem with race. Let me land right there and leave that right in your face. Well, that is an interesting dynamic, is it not? And shared there in the chat. Just let me know what you think of that. All right, so we're almost through. I just got a few other things to do. You know, we talk about, the critical race theory in relation to Caucasian related truths. One of the things that they love to deny is their white privilege. They call that a lie. But let's see what this article has to say. What is white privilege really? Recognizing white privilege begins with truly understanding the term itself. This by Corey Collins from 2018. Today, white privilege is often described through the lens of Peggy McIntosh's groundbreaking essay, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. Originally published in 1988, the essay helps readers recognize white privilege by making its effects personal and tangible. For many, white privilege was an invisible force that white people needed to recognize. It was being able to walk into a store and find that the main displays of shampoo and pantyhose were catered toward your hair type and skin tone. It was being able to turn on the television and see people of your race widely represented. It was being able to move through life without being racially profiled or unfairly stereotyped. All true. Well, what an interesting read. I think I'll give it to you. So that seems to be an answer to how you might look at white privilege for any of those who might, offer that to any. So I'm going to close with this. I got a lot of topics, not too many, but let's define Afrophobia, shall we? Afrophobia. People of African descent experience widespread racism and discrimination across the EU and in all areas of life, including employment, education, policing, and the criminal justice system. Recognizing and addressing Afrophobia is a specific form of racism that affects people of supposed African descent, and Black Europeans is essential to ensure their inclusion in Europe. So this comes as a view from across the pond. And so we know that Afrophobia, as it is coined over in the European lands, is something that they deal with on the daily. All right, I think we're good. I think we've done all that we could. And I'm going to leave it right there. But you know what? I just got one more thing to air, this one. What is critical race theory and why is it under attack? After this, I'm going to bring it back. Is critical race theory a way of understanding how American racism has shaped public policy, or a divisive discourse that pits people of color against white people? Liberals and conservatives are in sharp disagreement. The topic has exploded in the public arena this spring, especially K through 12, where numerous state legislators are debating bills seeking to ban its use in the classroom. In truth, the divides are not nearly as neat as they may seem. The events of the last decade have increased public awareness about things like housing segregation, the impacts of criminal justice policy in the 1990s, and the legacy of enslavement on Black people. But there's much less consensus on what the government's role should be in righting these past wrongs. Add children and schooling into the mix, and the debate becomes especially volatile. School boards, superintendents, even principals and teachers are already facing questions about critical race theory. And there are significant disagreements even among experts about its precise definition, as well as how its tenets should inform K through 12 policy and practice. This explainer is meant only as a starting point to help educators grasp core aspects of the current debate. What is critical race theory anyway? Critical race theory is an academic concept that is more than 40 years old. The core idea is that race is a social construct, and that racism is not merely the product of individual bias or prejudice, but also something embedded in legal systems and policies. And that, my friends, is a fucking fact. And so we have, as we close, two or more types of C.R.T, the Caucasian Related Truths that we see, that dovetail nicely into their own C.R.T-like cacophony of confusion that helps somehow provide their illusion. All right, folks, that's it. I'm done. I am about to run. I feel good. I think we had a very good presentation, and it was meant specifically for the Negro Nation. I'm Doug Rice. That's who I am. Hey, I'm not going to peddle my wares every day. I'm not going to do that. You know, there's just sometimes I just got to say what I got to say. You know how to support this effort, and you probably know as well how you will be rewarded and compensated and such and what and not. If you give us any form of support, we will compensate you by way of PDFs. I'll get into some of those. I got a few left. All right, folks, that's it. I gave you an hour. I gave you some of this Negro power. I want you to take it, run with it. I want you to go. I want you to act like now you know, dog. You know? Okay. All right, that's enough. All right, I got to go. Listen, hey, we got to live. I got to support these two somehow. I'm going to put them on payroll. It's going to happen. It is. I don't know. I don't know. This is the Doug Rice Show. We'll get it done. All right, folks, I got to go. My voice is tired. Okay? Just so you know. All right. You guys have a good day. And thanks for coming by today. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks. Wait! Hey! Darn it! It's the Daily Show, man. It's the Daily Show. It slips your mind. Listen. It's Tuesday. Oh, yeah, it's Tuesday. Time is just rolling by. And then you just got that shooting out of your eye, didn't you? Huh? Don't you laugh. You understand what I'm saying, huh? Every minute, every second, every hour. Just increases the deniability power. They shoot us and time moves on, and then they expect us to get along. But today, as a carry on from yesterday, what can I say? I still think the message needs to be delivered. Not in big chunks, maybe in slivers. If you got to go out there in these public places, do me a favor. Get that goddamned grin off your faces. I appreciate that. I got it.